I am about to go skip Unleashed, brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, on the wild night that my wife Ernestine and I experienced out here in Los Angeles, California at the Hollywood premiere, brought to you by Netflix, of the Dallas Cowboy documentary that is going to drop, I believe it's next Tuesday on Netflix. 8 episodes. I'm pretty sure they're going to drop right into your living room all at once. So get ready to binge. I saw 1 episode and it was master class. It was spectacularly designed. The interviews, the editing, the pace, the rhythm of it, the juxtaposition of it was just spectacular. And Netflix executives are saying that they hope and believe that this could be even more watched than, you know what? It was in the pandemic, early in the pandemic, The Last Dance. I was also there for that, 1998. Last go around for Michael Jordan and the Bulls. That was spectacular too. Watched every second of it. What was that, 10 episodes? This is 8. But I'll give you my takeaway before I take you behind the scenes throughout the night. And by the way, I met one LeBron connection at this premiere that knocked my socks off. I was blindsided. I'll get to that in just a moment. Bear with me. But here's my biggest takeaway of a night. Saw Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith, Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, all the family, all were there for this premiere. They did a Q&A afterwards, after we were shown 1 episode. And here's my takeaway. If this is going to be bigger than The Last Dance, then you're going to have to convince me that Jerry Jones, an owner who did play college football for a national championship team at Arkansas, but he's still just a sports owner, albeit of the most valuable team in the world. But you're going to have to convince me that Jerry Jones has more drawing power than the greatest player ever in any sport, the greatest performer ever, the greatest clutch performer ever, Michael Jeffrey Jordan. So we've got Jerry Jones versus Michael Jordan. Help me out. Who's bigger? Who has more magnetism? Jerry or Michael? Well, to me, going behind the scenes with Jordan could be a touch more captivating. But I will say this. I wrote 3 books about the Dallas Cowboys. That's why they, for this documentary, interviewed me. I think we sat for 6 straight hours. I'm told that I'm throughout. I'm used liberally. I'm honored. But I was there. I did write the 3 books that came out in 90, 93, and 96. This documentary is mostly about the 1990s Cowboys dynasty that should have been an all-time dynasty, a Bulls-esque dynasty, but it wasn't. You know why. So the lightning rod moment of this entire documentary is Jerry firing Jimmy Johnson after Jimmy's Cowboys had won 2 straight Super Bowls in 92, 93 seasons. I wrote a book about that. I will say this. That team, thanks to that owner and that coach and the coach who followed him, Barry Switzer, good friend of mine, and those players, those triplets, Troy, Emmett, Michael, joined by Deion Sanders and the crazy but great Charles Haley. That was the most captivating team I was ever around. Show me a more captivating team in sports history than that team and that run from 91-ish to 96. Show me, because you can't. Yeah, I know all about the 85 Bears. I know all about them. I know all about those Steelers dynastic teams, Terry Bradshaw and company, all those Hall of Famers through the 70s. They beat my Cowboys twice. I was there for both of those Super Bowls, covered both. What was it? 10 and 13. I was there. But since then, the Patriot dynasty was boring compared to these Cowboys. On and off the field. Boring. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, I don't know. Yeah, throwing Mr. Taylor Swift. I don't know. It's not like this. Not like this. Trust me. This was it. So if just a team, thanks to the owner, coach, and superstars, can captivate more eyeballs on Netflix than the 1998 Chicago Bulls, it's got a shot. But make no mistake, this documentary is a monument to Jerry Jones, start to finish. It's all about Jerry. And as we rode home on Monday night from the Egyptian Theater on Hollywood Boulevard, Ernestine and I going back and forth about all the sights and sounds that we experienced, including one punchline of the person sitting next to her. I'll get to that in just a moment. But we're talking about the night. Michael's there, Emmett's there. I thought Troy would be there. I don't know what happened. That was a little surprising to me, but he might have had other commitments. It's a long way to travel from Dallas to here. Michael was there, but whatever. The start, by the way, we were shown the intro to episode 1 and then episode 3, because episode 3, and there were a lot of Cowboy fans in the audience. I'm not sure how they got tickets, because you had to have assigned seats in the Egyptian Theater, but I don't know. I don't know if they could buy tickets. But my point is that Netflix obviously wanted to show the producers, McLean and Chapman Way. I love them. Adam Goldberg, love him. Genius, all of them. But they wanted to pick an episode to show to the crowd that would light up the crowd, rah-rah the crowd right out of its seats. And this one did, because it's the 1992 NFC Championship game at Candlestick, when the Cowboys broke through maybe a year ahead of schedule and beat a fairly solidly favored 49ers team. Dallas was actually a little better. I'll get to that in just a second. But the point was, this episode revolves around 92, but it juxtaposes 92 off the catch, the Dwight Clark catch after the 81 season that ended, basically, it was the beginning of the end of the Tom Landry dynasty, the launch of the Bill Walsh Montana dynasty. A lucky throw from Joe Montana that he's trying to throw it away, and Dwight Clark went up into the fog and ripped it out of the fog over my friend Everson Walls, a rookie that year in 81. But the point was, they're juxtaposing those two games and how the 49ers had just dominated thanks to Joe Montana all the way up to 92, from 82 to 92. They had just owned the NFL. And they're also juxtaposing in this episode Jerry's rise, all the way from his childhood up through his days of overachieving. I don't know how he pulled it off, but he walked on at Arkansas and scratched and clawed until he made the team as like a 195-pound offensive guard. And he toughed it out, stuck it out until his senior year, when he not only made the team, but they elected him a co-captain of the team. And he started as a senior at guard on a team that won every game, including the Cotton Bowl over Nebraska 10-7, won at Texas 14-13. They won the national championship. Jerry did that. Who knew? But my point to you is that if I'm on the way home in a car and I'm Michael Irvin or Emmitt Smith, I'm kind of thinking to myself, yeah, we did that. We won that game at Candlestick. We obviously easily beat Buffalo in that Super Bowl, and then we beat the 49ers again next year in the NFC Championship game, and Did it again to Buffalo. We did that. Troy did it. Michael did it. Emmett did it. Charles Haley did it. We all did that. Jerry didn't play a single down. But it's clear that this documentary, I didn't even mention the name of it, it's called America's Team, The Gambler and His Cowboys. Jerry gambled in oil and gas. He points out in the doc, I won't get all, that's a spoiler alert. Just you got to watch his background, because he was so far in debt that he was just about to be a goner until kaboom, mother load. You'll see if you watch. You got to watch. But I think this whole 8-episode documentary is going to revolve around Jerry Jones. And if I'm a player, I don't know if I love that. I don't know. He is the most interesting man in sports, by far the most interesting owner ever, the most polarizing owner by far times 1,000 ever, way beyond George Steinbrenner in magnitude, impact, world famous Jerry Jones. But if I'm a player, I say, God, he's getting so much credit. He did deserve credit for that 92 breakthrough, and I'm going to get to that in 1 second. But that's the documentary. So we arrive. It's packed. It's a madhouse of people. Security was great, but there were a lot of Cowboy fans. And obviously, I'm a lifelong diehard. You know how I feel about the Cowboys, so I get mobbed. I have to take a lot of pictures. We posted some pictures Ernestine and I took. And it's just a jam of people. It's just bodies pressed up against bodies as we're all sort of waiting to go in to watch the episodes in the theater. It's a beautiful theater. And yet, in this crush of people, pictures, signing this, just fist bumps. It's craziness that I'm seeing a lot of people that I know, a lot of executives I know, a lot of people who worked on the documentary that I know. There's a sort of, they called it the blue carpet, not the red carpet. And all of a sudden I get tapped on the shoulder. I turn around, there's this he's not quite as tall as I am guy, but he's incredibly fit. And he says, Skip, I'm Mike Mancias. And I'm like, what? Because it's like the last person on earth I thought I would see at a Dallas Cowboy premiere. I knew exactly who it was. It's LeBron's trainer. I don't know how long they've been together, since the Miami days. Mike Mancias is all-time great at what he does. And I knew of him because my close friend Tim Grover, who trained Michael Jordan and Kobe and Dwayne Wade, he trained Mike to be a trainer. Not Mike already knew how to be a trainer, but he trained him in how to work with Michael Jordan and Kobe. So Mike sort of apprenticed under Tim Grover in Chicago before he connected with LeBron. And that was a really smart move by LeBron James to go get a chip off the old block of Tim Grover, who trained Jordan, who worked wonders with Jordan, turned his body around after the Pistons. Remember the Jordan Rules, the book? It was about the rules the Pistons had to just, you can't let, in those days you could play football, basketball, and in those days they're putting Michael Jordan on his back before he could even rise. They said, don't ever let him leave his feet. He's going down. And Tim Grover had to change Michael Jordan's body just the way Mike Mancias started to change LeBron's body. So I thought for a second, and I'd warned Ernestine that I might be the villain here tonight, because in the interviews I talked about a lot of tough stuff. And I just told the truth as I knew it and know it. And some people aren't going to like it, and I thought maybe some people there might not like it. I didn't know. I said, be ready. We might take some flack and some crap. We might. And so when Mike comes up, I'm thinking, is he going to maybe rib me or even rip me? about being too hard on LeBron throughout the years. And he was just great. Big smile on his face. Said he just wanted to meet me. Great. I'm honored. I'm flattered. This guy is all-time great. The one thing about LeBron James, he surrounds himself with greatness in the people that he chooses to be in his inner circle. Maverick Carter is just high quality. Rich Paul, I don't always agree with him and what he's saying, how he manipulates, but he's just brilliant at his job. Mike Mancias is masterful at his job. He's one of the best. I think Tim is the all-time best. He just is. But we talked. I said, could I get a picture with you? And I posted it today because I was proud of it. I mean, LeBron, I know genetics play some role, but nobody's ever worked harder on his body. Nobody has lasted longer than LeBron James. So it was an honor to meet the man who's helped him. It's, 90% LeBron, but the special sauce is that 10% from Mike Mancias. So finally, we push through the people. We get through. They gave us the wristbands. We got assigned seats. So we get down to our row, and we're sitting next to the great Al Michaels and his wife. They're on the end of the row because Al Michaels is going to narrate, sort of moderate, if you will, the Q&A afterwards. So he was going to have to duck out as soon as the episode ended. The episode is just knocked me out of my seat. But the point was, and then there's this older gray-haired man next to Ernestine on her right that I looked at, and he was looking at me like he knew me, like I should know him, and I didn't. I'll get to that in just a moment. What a story. So then episode 3 starts, and I got to tell you, it was so inside that 92 breakthrough NFC Championship game, in the mud, in the blood, at Candlestick, that it was the most fun I've had watching a Dallas Cowboy game, even though it was on tape, since then. Seriously, since then. There hasn't been anything like that game since then. That's the end of, it's early, January of 93. It was monumental. It was by far the 2 best teams in the NFL that year, the up-and-coming breakthrough Cowboys and the 14-2 49ers. Now, Steve Young was in for Joe Montana, so that might be slight advantage Dallas. But what tilted the playing field for the Cowboys that day was a player I hope you know, maybe some of you younger viewers don't, but it was a pass rusher named Charles Haley. I got to know Charles a little. Sometimes he'd call into my radio show in Dallas, rip me. Charles had issues. They talk about in the documentary, he had big issues in San Francisco. Big, bad issues. There's some details in the documentary that will curl your hair, so to speak. There's one detail about what he was doing in a team meeting. I know another detail that wasn't in the documentary about what he did in the office of the general manager. Those incidents led to the 49ers deciding more trouble than worth. We can't do this anymore with Charles Haley. He wasn't a good player. He was a great player, and he finally, rightfully got put in the Hall of Fame. He has 5 Super Bowl rings. He won 3 in San Francisco and 2 in Dallas. And yet, the shock to me was that Jerry Jones talked the president of the 49ers in 92, Carmen Policy, who was a big deal under the DeBartolo family owned the team. He was the hands-on operator of the team. Carmen Policy actually traded Charles Haley to Jerry Jones, the up-and-coming conference rival that was the Dallas Cowboys. You can't do that. That tilted the playing field in favor of the Dallas Cowboys. Trust me on this. There is no way the Cowboys win the Super Bowl in 92 or 93 without Charles Haley. they did not have a pass rusher anywhere near the quality, the impact of Charles Haley, who was a bad, pardon my language, MF. Just a bad MF. Little crazy, but crazy great. I mean, I loved him. I loved the man. I would watch 94. They couldn't block 94. Trust me on this. 94 was way beyond Micah Parsons. Just trust me. You got to believe me. In mindset, in guts, in will, in explosion, in strength, in power, in just sheer nastiness. Charles Haley, beyond Micah Parsons. Not even close. Trust me. He was the difference maker. And Jerry Jones, really against Jimmy's wishes. Jimmy didn't love the idea of trying to coach Charles Haley, and I didn't blame him because the stories were horror stories. Wait until you see the documentary. But Jerry forged it through. And why Carmen Policy chose Dallas? I mean, ship him to Timbuktu, ship him to wherever, to the other conference, to Buffalo. I don't know, ship him anywhere but Dallas, because they got the triplets. They're a team on the verge, on the rise, in your face. They're coming for you. You can't give them a player they don't have, the X factor, Charles Haley, and they did. So they interviewed Jerry Rice for the documentary. Most people think he's the greatest receiver ever. I still think it's Michael Irvin, but that's just me. And Jerry Rice says late in episode 3 that I watched at the premiere, Jerry Rice says that trading Charles Haley, I thought it was the dumbest move ever. And I have said that repeatedly because it was the dumbest move ever. And then all of a sudden, on screen flashes up today's Carmen Policy. I knew him from a distance back in the 90s when I was covering the team, writing the books. Italian Stallion, Carmen Policy, jet black hair. And I look up at the screen and flashing up is today's Carmen Policy, who's a little older and a lot grayer. And Ernestine leans over and tugs on my suit coat and my elbow. She whispers in my ear, "That's the man sitting next to me." They sat me next to Carmen Policy in my assigned seat. We're sitting next to Carmen Policy and his wife. I'm a villain. He was kind of a villain savior of the Cowboys. And Jerry pulled that off. So in my book called The Boys that came out the next year, I gave Jerry credit. Jimmy hated me for it, or hated the book. He didn't hate me, but he despised that I gave Jerry any credit because they were falling completely apart, over credit. And I gave him credit. How did he pull that off? Jerry Jones doesn't have Super Bowl trophies unless he pulls off the trade for Charles Haley. Book it. Trust me. I know. Jerry Rice knows that Jerry Jones stole the show. So you got to give him that much credit that no Michael, no Emmett, he didn't catch a football, didn't throw a football, didn't throw a block, didn't run, didn't block. He didn't do anything. He was just the owner, but he pulled off that trade as the general manager of the Dallas Cowboys that changed the balance of power, because look, the 49ers had won Super Bowls in 81, 84, 88, and 89. They were 14-2 in 92, and they were poised to win that one. If Charles Haley is still a 49er and they've figured a way to manage him and harness him, the Cowboys are going to lose that game, and the 49ers are going to go roll over Buffalo. 93, NFC Championship games in Dallas. Steve Young against the Cowboys. Same idea. If Charles Haley is still a 49er and still somewhat happy, reasonably happy, and locked in and plugged in, Dallas isn't going to beat San Francisco. Trust me. So what if the 49ers win it in 92, 93? They did win it in 94 because Barry Switzer was in the coach of the Cowboys, and they weren't quite ready to do that again at Candlestick. And they lost that championship game. And then Dion came in 95. Might have changed the balance of power enough, but I don't know. Charles was still going in 95, 96. I don't know what would have happened. I mean, you want to talk about a dynasty. That would have been a 2-decade dynasty of the San Francisco 49ers if, in fact, Charles Haley had been able to remain a 49er. So thanks to the man to Ernestine's right, Jerry turned into Mr. Right in Dallas because he pulled up, and Jerry's a super salesman. He talks in the documentary about how much money he could borrow. He talked people into borrowing millions of dollars. He was in such trouble. His wife and her father called Jerry and said, Jerry, come on, man. You're going to crumble. You know, they're afraid he's like going to wind up in jail because he couldn't pay any debts. He went and got Charles Haley. And the rest is Super Bowl history. 3 Super Bowls happened for the Dallas Cowboys. 2 with Jimmy, 1 with Barry Switzer, who, God, he and Charles got really close. So that was my night at the Egyptian. Mike Mancias and Carmen Policy. And yet, when that episode 3 ended, it ends with Jerry shooting a gun from a hunting blind. Boom! Because they were shot out of a cannon after that. I just got tears in my eyes because it's been 30 years since we even sniffed a Super Bowl, or I should say an NFC Championship game. I had more fun watching the inside insights, the behind the scenes of the 1992 NFC Championship game than I have watching any Cowboy game since 1992. That's a long time. That's 33-ish years. Who knew? So thank you, Netflix, for letting me be a part of it, but thank you for inviting me to the premiere so I could have one night back in the sun at night. The sun shone right through the Egyptian theater roof after dark, shone on me. And when it ended, Ernestine's looking at me like, you crying? Yeah, I was. I got tears in my eyes. I can't help myself. It was that good. So whether you love the Cowboys with all your heart and soul like I do, or you hate the Cowboys with every ounce of your body, I just think you won't be able to stop watching this because, as Jerry says, it's the all-time soap opera. It's way beyond the soap opera Dallas. Way beyond. It's the greatest soap opera ever because it's the most captivating, intriguing, wildly interesting team ever, led by Jerry Jones. So you tell me after you watch it, is Jerry Jones more captivating than Michael Jordan? That's going to be the question about how this does on Netflix. You tell me. I can't wait.